now of the priority of a municipal detention rehabilitation center where offenders can be removed from harming others and receive services to change the trajectory of their involvement in criminal activity to being contributors to society. I'm thankful for our city officials, like I said, on their emphasis of the importance of public safety and working collaboratively together to make our city safer, which also echoes the words of Jackson County Prosecutor-elect to be said. So I echo her words and appreciate the collaboration with our city officials. With that, that ends my words, and I am available for any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question for the chief. Phenomenal report. Thanks for laying that out, that essentially attrition is down, retirements are down at a different pace, academy classes are moving forward. Do we, and this is maybe for you or for DC Ortiz, do we do projections in which we say over the next 2-3 years we want to hit X number, so we need to have attrition at this rate and growth at X rate? I mean, do we do exercises like that to help us target the number of people that we need to be in the academies, knowing when we look at the numbers of folks who might be up for retirement? Do we do those sort of exercises to understand we need to be here by a certain date and how do we get there? Kind of a quarter by quarter trend for the year. Do we do those?
Well, for each academy class, we want to try to get 50 in academy class. I can't remember the last time we've had 50 in academy class. I would almost say it was back during the mid-90s, or even when I came in, where we had that big push for law enforcement in the United States. It's been several years since we've seen something like that. I do put pressure on Deputy Chief Ortiz to get numbers up in the academy, but that's the challenge that I kind of just spoke on. Right now, we're just trying to get more officers to want to be Kansas City, Missouri police officers, so we can bring them in and put them in key positions. So when you talk about projecting, you know, when we request our budget, we request 150 officers. And in that, we work within the year to reach that 150 number, but with attrition and, you know, like with resignations, retirements and whatnot, we have not been able to meet that. But right now, for the first time in the past 5 years, it looks like we are at least, some people may say, stopping the bleed, like kind of just holding on that, and hopefully after that, increasing our numbers to a positive number instead of below attrition. We hope to at least meet it and even have some positive numbers above that.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for, is to understand if we had some sort of formula. We know there are a lot of unknowns, right? But if there was something in which we said, if we hit 50 and if we slow attrition and if we, you know, we'll get to this number by 2026 or 2027. So, but that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Maybe just to think ahead, and I've been tracking that attrition number as well, and I mean, to cut that in half, and I would suspect you tell us that it's largely attributable to the raises, as officers who could retire say, no, that's a good adjusted salary, and staying on 2 more years, then that affects pension. Knowing that happened, kind of like what happened in the 90s when there was a big push for that, maybe this is what Commissioner Romeus was getting at, between planned and unplanned attrition. You know, that planned attrition of, we just anticipate there'll be so many retirements or people naturally leaving. Looking out ahead a couple of years, we might want to, I don't know, maybe you already are, I'll ask it as a question, thinking about what happens next so that we don't have another increase in planned attrition. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but making sure we can continue to hold on to our attrition rate.
Well, part of that is also making sure that you have a working environment where your employees feel valued and supported, so it's also that culture. You know, if we have a positive culture at KCPD, we hope to retain police officers also feeling valued and supported externally, which was a great sign from City Council and Mayor Lucas on the raises that we just received. If our officers feel supported and valued, then that sometimes can affect that attrition number. But looking ahead, I think right now we're just trying to get as many people in the academy class as we can, like without limit. You know, if we could get, honestly, if our next 3 classes we could get 150, that would be what we're budgeted for, then we would go back and for the next budget year and increase what that is. I'm not sure if I'm specifically answering your question, but we do look at attrition. We do project it. We do that when we are looking at promotions. You know, like we anticipate this, say like we're doing the captain's list, we anticipate this many commanders leaving, so we anticipate 15 commander vacancies. So we do keep an eye on what that is. But over the last 5 years, it's just been a struggle just to get people in the door and successfully completing the police academy.
That answers
Which they
my-
are.
Yeah, that answers my question, looking out ahead, just to make sure we're aware of that planned attrition and getting it closer to where we want it to be, and then it's a matter of maintaining that so that it doesn't creep back up.
Right, and I think the piece of that is hard to respond to or answer is the lack of being able to project how many you're gonna get in an academy class. Because we do large pushes, we're in places we've never been, we're in high schools, like, I think we talked about that last time, at T-Mobile, I mean, like, at military, institutions, and it's just, sometimes you'll get a class of 23, and sometimes you get a class of 15. You know, so we're just constantly trying to make sure that we are out doing as much as we can to get the numbers that we need of qualified applicants to be police officers.
If you back out the laterals, which you said were, I think, 19,
19.
what does that do to our net number through today?
That lowers that to 43.
So would you anticipate the laterals to sort of settle down a little bit because of the salary increase? Or would you expect it to continue at that pace?
We have been showing a trend of continuing. Because we brought in 19 laterals and we have 13 in the process. If it was just one big push within the first 6 months, and we're 6 months out after the May 1 raises. If that number was waning or starting to show like it was kind of reducing, I would say, you know, maybe we just got that first wave. But right now, it's the interest in lateral officers is still continuing.
I think understanding the strategy is helpful. You know, my first question was about kind of understanding, do we foresee a bubble in which we know we have X amount of officers who are kind of maybe near retirement age, and we understand that there's going to be a bump up in attrition, and are we strategically planning for that? But it sounds like we are. But quick follow-up question for the academy: are some of the folks in the academy, they're not for KCPD? Are they for other agencies, or is that inaccurate?
There are other agencies. I think there's 17 other agencies that we train. 17 officers. Sorry, I was like 17. That's a lot. I've been on the stage with like at least seven other police chiefs. So we do train regionally, but the numbers that I report are just KCPD numbers. I will say, just from speaking to rank and file and other department members, we have 100% retained officers that would have retired for almost 2 years, anticipate and project almost 2 years after these initial raises. I have heard people possibly leaving in 2025, December of 25, to get the full pension benefit of that raise. So that is something that is a concern that we're looking at, and obviously us as an executive staff, we will be looking at ways that we could potentially retain those officers yet again and bring new in.
And that was my question too, because I know we have that expiring here soon, that retention bonus. And so that's in 2025 before the World Cup. Is that when that expires, as far as that contract that they signed?
I'm sorry.
The retention bonus that we
Yes.
gave, so that expires in 2025 before World Cup?
That's for our professional staff. And this year, so last year was, let me just correct a little bit of that. December is usually like the big time of the year that we see our retirements. Obviously, the full pension benefit of those raises would be May of 2026. But oftentimes you see people leaving in 2025. And obviously, we want to make sure that we retain as many officers as possible for all the large events that we have coming here to Kansas City. With regard to, what did you ask me again? I'm sorry.
When that expires, as far as
Yes.
before or after the World Cup, and if that's something we need to proactively look at,
Okay, that-
maybe extending or offering another one.
Okay, that's where I was going with that, sorry. This past May, this budget year that we're living in right now, we really put an emphasis on raising pay for law enforcement. We've done a pay staffing study for our professional staff, which we are working on and has been submitted in this year's budget to really bring our professional staff up to where they need to be at market rate. So it's kind of like, this is the year of the professional staff. So we are already, we're actually already in discussions about the thoughts about next year and some of those projections and that.
Any other questions?
Just briefly, Chief, it may not be brief. Chief, I want to say thank you, first of all. Let's just be honest.
I always appreciate your honesty.
To everything that Ms. Johnson discussed, it takes an innovative chief and command staff to help develop a lot of the things that we've done, multidisciplinary, public safety task force, all of that work. It does not exist without KCPD. And there are many who critique this department, and you and others, about sometimes not having those innovative ideas, but that's one that's just staring in the face everyone in this community. And we are seeing real results and real progress. So I wanted to make sure we amplified that. It's kind of hard to get people to notice because it's technical and nobody wants to hear about 7 departments working together in PD and neighborhoods and what have you, but it makes an incredible difference in our community, and I thank you for that. On the hiring idea, this is just more of a question. The thing that alarms me the most is the 40% decline nationwide in law enforcement hiring. And, I understand much of it is, there still are lingering effects of 2020. Birth rates become a challenge, and just having enough folks who may be wanting to come in and join this profession. Are there, and we ask every 6 months or so, but creative ideas, new ideas as to how we get people in, or does it seem as if major metropolitan departments will just have to plan it for the next generation to consistently be low on staffing? Because I understand many of your peers face the same issue, and I just wonder from a board policy perspective, almost to Commissioner Romeus's beginning point, do we have to plan a world in which we are chronically understaffed and thus address things in a different way? What's the future really in that law enforcement hiring world?
Well, the 40% was the drop in applications, yeah. Well, I've been seeing things nationwide of different types of initiatives, pushes, but again, you can have all of these efforts, but you still have to have a good working environment, a good culture, I guess you'd say, where the profession, the people who do the job are valued. And I know that may sound overstated, but I can't overstate that enough. Like even external factors affect how officers feel about how they're perceived in their positions. And last month I discussed officers that were put in very dangerous situations, as we are, and this is what we do. We answer the call. But at the same time, I do know that officers want to make sure that they feel like that is acknowledged and recognized and valued. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, it does. It does somewhat.
I mean, we are constantly looking at, we're improving our website, our application process online. We are, Deputy Chief is pointing to something that I can't read because I don't have my readers on. But we are constantly collaborating every week of what we can do, where we can be, what space, how can we be seen, how are we perceived, to try to make sure that we are doing all kinds of different innovative ways to recruit people to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. We have so many opportunities here. We are a major metropolitan city, but we still have like a hometown feel. So we need to use and capitalize on some of those positive things about our city that would attract people to want to serve.
We continue to root for you on all of those things. I have had the fortune lately of attending some of these fire department graduation ceremonies. There was one class of 105.
Yes, we're jealous.
The recent, I was just sitting there saying, can half of you do us a favor and just,
Join the blue team?
It's all good, pay's gonna be solid, but nonetheless, whatever we can do to help along the way, and I commend particularly website changes I know we have to do, and people are on their phones all the time now, so whatever we do in apps. I will say this, in the unique role on this board right now as a toddler parent, they may not be making movies about police officers the same way they used to, but the kid shows, you all are still there. It is Paw Patrol, it's all of that,
Yeah.
so I'll just try to make sure my 3-year-old just keeps watching all the right stuff, and that can support. But thank you for doing
Thank
this
you.
work and this
Thank you for
report.
your support, I appreciate it. And Paw Patrol, his name is Chase. Appropriately named.
And you may like this. Paw Patrol, Chase is kind of the heroic character. Mayor Humdinger is a villain. And so just, you guys win now.
Well, it's not like that here.
Okay, so, Chief, just to kind of summarize, because obviously I came in 2021, and I came in during a very turbulent time. And I know during this time, we watched a whole nation go through policing, and you guys went from the heroes to the villains. And part of the reason I joined this board was to bring that confidence back into our community, back into our city council, our mayor, to get our relationships, everybody working together. And I think we've come a long ways now. And I think that tide is turning. But as we know, it has to hit rock bottom, which I feel we've hit, or we're close to, before we can, go forward and pick that up. So we're all here to support you, to support the community, to make this city a safer place. I know it's not just us. I know we have a clearance rate of 80% of when we, which is better than the nation's clearance rate of 50% of, putting people away. However, that's one piece of the puzzle. We still need that jail. We need to hold people accountable. We need that detention center to at least be that first, slap on the hand, don't do this, wake-up call. And these are all things we need to all continue to work on, how we can make this happen, how we can make it happen quickly, and what we can do. So we are here, and we hear you. And
Thank you.
anything we need to do, let us know on.
We appreciate the support, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. All righty. Investigation Bureau, Deputy Chief Niemeyer.
Good morning.
Morning.
My items will be under tab A in your board book. I would first like to start out, as I've said before, I kind of build on each board meeting, and this month we're going to talk about a couple different things, but I want to start with the assault squad. We've talked all year about the number of bullet-to-skin assaults that have occurred in our city. Most of the year, we've been up approximately 25 to 30% as I report each month. I will discuss the stats later in this presentation, but we are currently at 531 bullet-to-skin cases. The assault squad also handles all the other assaults that occur even without a firearm. We've had 2 assault squads with 6 detectives in those squads for the past several years. The Investigations Bureau office decided back in May that we would begin to slowly add additional detectives in an attempt to create a 3rd assault squad, which we had previously had. I want to thank Deputy Chief Ortiz and his bureau. I especially want to thank Deputy Chief Maben and his bureau for helping us accomplish this. We will officially begin that 3rd assault squad in January. Final detectives for that assault squad are being trained right now, and hopefully we will be able to have 3 fully functional assault squads begin in January. And I think that's very important due to the fact of the numbers of bullet-to-skins and additional assaults that we've had. That's a tremendous amount of cases to place on those 12 detectives, so we'll be adding a third group. So I couldn't have done that. My bureau couldn't have done that without the help of Ortiz and Maben, so thank you. And I want to give a case update. We did that last month. One case, I will update on one case that was the assault squads. The shooting that occurred at Crown Center earlier this year went to trial already. It was on the news. 2 individuals were found guilty in that trial and will be sentenced in December. Assistant Jackson County Prosecutor Christiane Bryant was the lead prosecutor on this case. She was assisted by Deion St.